self-driving electric cars could save the Japanese countryside. Let's do it.
Let's go.
As someone who lives out in the countryside here and also pays attention on the internet, there's always a lot of talk about the Japanese countryside emptying out and it has no future and things like this. And one thing I've learned is most people are wrong about most things, and this is why I often think about what's happening in the world and how this might be the case. And I've thought about this self-driving car thing, and it actually could help save the countryside. One of the main drivers when people get a little bit older, and this is something I need to think about as well, is once your license has been taken away from you, your options are pretty stark. So in rural areas, it's not economic for public transport to be run. It's a net loss for the government, just because there's just not enough people using the service. But with self-driving cars or self-driving taxi services, things like this, there'll be a lot less pressure for people to move out of rural areas due to these transportation constraints. And if you look at history, people with a lot of money, they tended to have estates and things out in the countryside, and they continued to live there when they were older. And the main form of transport were horses back then, and of course when you got a bit older you wouldn't be able to ride your horse, but they had a form of self-driving horse back then. They had staff who used to ferry these people around in wagons. So there'd be a staff member, he'd be on his horse, and he'd be towing a wagon with the rich countryside gentleman at the time, and he was able to do what he needed to do, get into town and whatever, and he didn't need to be able to ride his horse. And I look at this in a similar way with the self-driving cars. So people living out in the countryside, they still have the option to get wherever they want, and instead of having a staff member with a horse and wagon, they just have these self-driving cars. Either they own them, or as a taxi service that would just come and pick people up and take them where they needed to go to do what they needed to do. So I see this as a very viable option, and the more the technology increases and the better it is, the more it'll catch on. And if you look at history, people when they got a little bit older didn't really want to stay in cities, in built up areas, and this is especially true for people who had money. So the rich people didn't want to hang out around the great unwashed, so to speak. They had their estates and whatever, where they could go hunting and whatever they wanted to do and enjoy a quiet retirement. And just where technology is at the moment, it's not quite there yet. You can't have a totally fulfilling life if you don't have transport, and this problem seems to be getting solved. So what generally happens in Japan is the authorities, they will take people's licenses away from them as they get older. More rigorous testing every year to keep your license, driving tests, eye tests, things like this. And this is what causes people to go to nursing homes early, or maybe sell their place and get an apartment somewhere close by to a hospital, or convenient shopping and things like this. Is they just don't want to be isolated. So apart from this transport problem that seems to be getting resolved, you also have the massive advancements in drone technology, and And I know this is a little bit sci-fi-ish, but I see a time where parcels will actually be delivered to people's houses via drone, and it won't need to be done via roadways. I've been following sort of the advances in drones and things like this, and I see this as totally a possibility. So if you're a little bit older and you're sort of sick of being around people, so to speak, and property prices are a little bit cheaper out in the countryside, and you have a few bob in the bank, I can only see this as becoming more in demand. So while at the moment the exodus out of country areas in Japan is probably at its height, I see this totally changing, just because of the fundamentals of the reasons why people are leaving, is transport and convenience. And as I said, this is just totally being revolutionized. If you look at the spending habits of richer people, and where they're buying properties and where they're building their dream houses and things like this, it's not in urban areas, it's out in rural areas. So everybody gets old, doesn't matter if you're rich or not, and they wouldn't be doing this if they thought they're not going to have a fulfilling retirement living out in these places. So I have a suspicion that maybe they know that these areas in the future won't be so bad to live in as you get older. And from what I see, most people, when they come out to the countryside, especially if they're over 50, they tend to enjoy it more than living in the urban areas. So this is in contrast to the younger people. The younger people will always go to cities, so it doesn't matter the size of the city either. So you could get a city the size of Sydney, for example, and people have grown up in Sydney all their lives, in a city of 6 million people. They still want to go to a bigger city, don't they? They want to go to New York or Shanghai or Tokyo or something like this. So this sort of desire to go to urban areas, this is always going to happen, and it doesn't matter what is offered out in the rural areas. So I'm looking at this from people that are a bit more mature in life, and these are the people who generally have more money. I'll just get across, just give me a sec. So I feel the rejuvenation, if this happens, if I'm correct about this, will come from people over 40, or possibly over 50. And these people have the money. These people are low on time, so they're going to appreciate what their money can buy them. So they can buy them clean air, space, clean food, things like this. And these are the things that if you live in urban areas, it doesn't matter how rich you are, you just can't buy. You can't buy light pollution, no light pollution. You can't buy silence and things like this. So these sort of things in life can only be had out in the countryside. So it's something to think about. And if you look at Japan, even the country areas, even if you take the most isolated country area in Japan, it's still not that far from a second or third tier city. So if you look at a place like Australia, the distances are just too vast. So I don't see that as viable in a country like Australia, but definitely in a country like Japan. It's quite compact, it's narrow, so transport links and train services and things like this will always be more profitable. So I don't see a lot of these services going away. Also, I see technologies, wireless sort of internet technologies such as Starlink and things like this. This is only going to get better, and it's going to get faster, it's going to get all around it's just going to improve year on year. So the differences between the city and the country is not going to be as vast as the technology gets better all the time. So this is also another driving factor that supports sort of this hypothesis that that the country areas can be built back up again. So in saying this, this is not going to happen while I'm alive. I'm talking more over maybe 20 to 40 year time frame. I see the self-driving car to be it's going to be the standard, because at the moment they at least say it's as safe as a human driver in a lot of circumstances. I don't quite believe that, but I do believe it will be in 20 or 30 years time, that's for sure. So what will drive people buying these cars or using these services will be the insurance rates. So if you have your own car driving like I am at the moment, the insurance rate offered by the insurance companies will just be so expensive that most people will opt to have the self-driving car. So I think it'll be the insurance companies that will drive all this major change. If it's costing somebody $50,000 a year to have motor vehicle insurance because they're a human, you're just going to have less humans driving cars. So I find that these sort of major changes in society, they're usually brought about economically. So when things become too expensive, people will take the alternate. So the normal standard car like I'm driving at the moment won't go away, just as the horse didn't go away. There's still people who own horses, and there's still people who ride horses even on the streets, but everybody knows just how expensive it is to keep a horse, keep the horse fed, keep the horse in good health, vet bills, the extra time out of your day to look after a horse, and also you have higher insurance risks too. So a horse is a little bit not as reliable as a car, and it can do anything, so it can put a bit more risk onto the owner, can't it? So these are the sort of things that initially drove people to buy cars. It was the economic factor of it all. And what you find now is people who have horses and enjoy having a horse, they tend to be more affluent. So I don't see this is going to be anything different with cars. People who have a car, standard car like we're driving around now, they'll be the rich people. So you'll have normal people of normal means, they'll be using the self-driving, and the richer people will be driving around. So it'll go the way of the horse. And for the naysayers, which I'm sure there's probably other good counterpoints, is back in the day a lot of people thought that the horse couldn't be replaced, and they were all wrong. So this was the general consensus in society, that nobody's going to drive around in these stupid cars, and everyone's going to prefer their horse because you don't have to buy gasoline, you can just feed it some grass. But the economic reality turned out to be totally different, and this is how I see it happening, and this is how I see it reflecting on where people live. And I think the countryside will have its heyday in places, in countries such as Japan, smaller countries, but not so much the big vast expanses of Australia and places like this. So anyway, I've got to go shopping. Put down in the comments what you think. Just be a little bit polite. Everyone's going to have a little bit of a difference of opinion on this, but this is what I think about what's happening. and I could be wrong, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I do see a little bit of a renaissance possibly happening, because nothing's forever, is it? There's always ebbs and flows with everything, and everything comes back eventually. And I think rural living and all the benefits it has, this is not going to go away. These things are absolute truths, and they're going to be absolute truths in the future. Clean food, clean air, and your own space. This is never going to go out of fashion, and if all the hurdles to doing it go out the way or make it a lot easier, I think you're going to have a lot bigger uptake. So anyway, guys, as always, hope you like the video.